Good morning. Today we'll discuss the themes in the preface to the Lyrical Ballads by William Wordsworth. The preface to the Lyrical Ballads is at its core a manifesto of the Romantic movement. Wordsworth uses this essay to declare the tenets of Romantic poetry, which has distinctly different preoccupations from the neoclassical poetry of the earlier ages. The neoclassical poets emphasized intellectualism over emotion, society, didacticism, formality, and stylistic rigidity. The last stage of neoclassicism before the onset of romanticism is known as the Age of Johnson. In this last stage, of neoclassicism before the onset of romanticism is known as the Age of Johnson, and in this last stage writers attempted to break from the classical tradition through gestures like incorporating nature and melancholy, but on the other hand, in Wordsworth's eyes it was unsuccessful. Wordsworth proposes something more revolutionary in his preface to the Lyrical Ballads, that is, that emotion and imagination over intellectualism, nature over society, simple forms of expression, and the stylistic liberty of the poet. Through his preface to the Lyrical Ballads, Wordsworth argues that it's time for a new kind of poetry, one that can revive humankind to be emotionally alive and morally sensitive, which he hopes to catalyze with his own ballads. Wordsworth sees great harm in the poetry of the age of Johnson. The poets of this age have attempted to break from neoclassicism, but their poetry displays an unforgivable insensitivity and sensationalism. Wordsworth notes that there appears to be a craving for extraordinary incident among the general public for this of his times, and the literature and theatrical exhibitions of the country have conformed themselves to this taste. The invaluable works of, he has said, quote, our elder writers are driven into neglect by frantic novels, sickly and stupid German tragedies, and deludes of idle and extravagant stories in verse, unquote. Writers from the age of Johnson have attempted to incorporate certain characteristics of Romanticism, but have created works that are overwrought and lacking in insight. From Wordsworth's critique of these writers, readers of the preface to Lyrical Ballads can infer that Wordsworth believes writers should be sensitive to emotions but should not dramatize these emotions so that they become artificial. But nevertheless, the decline of literature has not led Wordsworth to be hopeless. The poet declares, I should be oppressed with no dishonorable melancholy had I not a deep impression of certain inherent and indestructible qualities of the human mind, and likewise of certain powers in the great and permanent objects that act upon it, which are equally inherent and indestructible. Unquote. In other words, we can say that Wordsworth believes that the decline from the age of Johnson can be counteracted by certain powers that can revive the human mind, namely the powers of Romanticism. Wordsworth wishes to guide his readers to the fluxes and refluxes of the mind when agitated by the great and simple affections of our nature, to guide his readers back to their natural sensitivity. In the introductory paragraphs of the preface, Wordsworth declares that by publishing the Lyrical Ballads for 4 years ago in 1798, he was conducting an experiment to see if people would accept a new class of poetry. Since these poems were well received, Wordsworth decided to write the preface to the lyrical ballads to give readers insight into why he wrote such experimental poems. In these poems, Wordsworth has attempted to quote, fit to metrical arrangement a selection of the real language of men in a state of vivid sensation, unquote. By writing these poems, Wordsworth intends not only to impart pleasure but also to produce a class of poetry which is well adapted to the interests of mankind permanently and not unimportant in the multiplicity and in the quality of its moral relations. From this, readers can see that Wordsworth has two main goals in mind. Number one, to create poems that appeal not only to well educated readers but also to the multiplicity of general public. And number two, to have these poems be relevant to humanity's moral relations, inspiring readers to have humane conduct, aware that these or his poems are so materially different from those upon which general approbation is at present bestowed. In other words, the poetry that is popular at the time of his writing, Wordsworth emphasizes that his poetic digression from neoclassicism into the product of an indolence which prevents him from endeavoring to ascertain what is his duty. Instead, Wordsworth wants to exclude certain classes of ideas and expressions in neoclassical poetry that to him are demonstration of an artificial gaudiness and inane phraseology. Wordsworth emphasizes that his decision to write in a simpler and less rigid style than the neoclassicists does not arise from laziness but from dislike for their lofty phrases. Therefore, he finds the neoclassical style to be too flashy and rather senseless. Neoclassicism, in its dedication to intellectualism and other lofty ideas, seems heartless to Wordsworth. Poets in the age of Johnson who attempted to diverge from earlier classes of neoclassicism failed to produce better literature and instead fell into the trap of sensationalism. Romanticism is something wholly revolutionary and, according to Wordsworth, has the potential to revive the public back to sensitivity. Then is the ordinary life and everyday language. Throughout his preface to the lyrical ballads, Wordsworth has emphasized the importance of depicting ordinary life using everyday language in a poem. According to Wordsworth, using ordinary life as a subject matter allows the poet to explore in a better way human nature and reveal the truth. This simple prose-like language not only corresponds well with ordinary life, but it is much closer to the way that normal everyday people speak and also is more universally intelligible. Its simplicity and honesty create a sense of permanence, making it acceptable for readers across time and space. In order to show why his method of tackling ordinary subjects through ordinary language is so important and impactful, Wordsworth reveals the pitfalls of not using that approach. He suggests that poets who don't rely on ordinary language separate themselves from the sympathies of men. So, to Wordsworth, a poet must be close to his readers and pull that reader in. A poet who tries to fluff up his or her poem with jargon or lofty language alienates the reader and has trouble connecting to their lived or lived experience. In addition, from ordinary life and plain language, or moving away from ordinary life and plain language, means that poems may be less enduring. Wordsworth argues that many poets indulge in arbitrary and capricious habits of expression in order to furnish food for fickle tastes. while poems centering around everyday life and expressed through simple language will live on. Poems that don't do those things will essentially only have small time of fame. Wordsworth also points out that he is abstained from such use of expressions. Wordsworth's explaining how certain words and phrases, though they may sound beautiful, can grow stale and over the years, so much so that even the best poet can't overpower the sour, spoiled flavor those words and phrases have taken on. He argues that what makes common scenes from ordinary life so impactful in poetry is that they speak clearly to human nature and are also enduring. Wordsworth makes it clear that his principal object is to choose incidents and situations from common life. He wishes to depict ordinary things in an interesting way through using his imagination so that his readers may better understand the human nature. Along these lines, Wordsworth claims that low and rustic life was generally chosen because in that condition the essential passions of the heart find a better soil in which they can attain their maturity and are less under restraint and speak a plainer and more emphatic language. Unquote. So, Wordsworth believes that there is a certain degree of universality to rural life. Things are more easily to comprehend because they are more durable. In other words, the rural life is the most easily relatable and timeless. He also emphasizes that he wants to use a selection of language that is really used by men, that is, the language that mirrors the way everyday people talk and as they go about their lives because of its purity and universality. For Wordsworth, society has corrupted language. Instead of buying into the lofty language and rigid poetic forms that society deems proper, Wordsworth chooses to use this ordinary language of a commoner. He explains that common people speak more truthfully because they aren't swayed by social vanity. Further, Wordsworth claims that such a language, quote, arising out of repeated experience and regular feelings is a more permanent and far more philosophical language than that which is frequently substituted for it by poets, unquote. To Wordsworth, everyday language means that it's stripped bare of the poetic devices that many believe to be part and parcel of poetry. He writes, quote, except in a very few instances, the reader will find no personifications of abstract ideas, unquote. Although personification has its place in certain poems, Wordsworth doesn't rely on the device because his goal is to imitate and as far as possible to adopt the very language of men. And along the same lines, Wordsworth also avoids excessive use of poetic diction. He explains that, quote, I have taken as much pains to avoid it as others ordinarily take to produce it. This I have done to bring my language near to the language of men, unquote. Towards the middle of his preface to the lyrical ballads, Wordsworth writes, quote, I wish to keep my reader in the company of flesh and blood, persuaded that by so doing I shall interest him, unquote. While Wordsworth means that readers won't find many instances of personification or lofty or abstract ideas floating around in the ballads, his statement here also speaks of his overarching goal to write in plain, unadorned language about everyday people and things, that is, flesh and blood, in order to convey the human experience in a way that is true and enduring. Thank you. The other half of this topic in our next lecture.